Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eyes Open Podcast, because once you see it,
you can't unsee it.
I'm your host, Richard Thomas.
I'm Amber Nordstrom.
And we're back again with my father, Don Railey.
Hey!
Where we left off, we were talking about all of the women that Trump is putting in his cabinet. And I'm excited because, we had gone for Matt Gaetz. And the reason why I went for Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, and that's what Trump's pick was because he's a go-getter. I mean, he's going to go after the Washington elite. He himself, had some problems with the Democratic Congress coming after him about some situations that didn't really pan out because the DOJ did not find him any fault in his case. But
and
they
remember, that was a Democrat DOJ, and if
Correct.
they didn't go after him,
Right.
there's nothing to go after.
And so what I loved about Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General with Matt Gaetz is because he was going to go after the people that went after him, the dirty, corrupt, it Garland? Merrick Garland, is he the
Merrick,
absolutely, the Attorney General, and he was going to start indicting. He'd already made promises of doing subpoenas and making sure that they showed up for their hearings. And so I think the Washington elite were a little scared of him, and a lot of people
in their boots.
Yep, they were shaking in their boots.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we found out just after he got that appointment, he stepped down after meeting with the Senate. We don't know exactly behind closed doors what was said to him, if there was any blackmail involved, but they were still bringing up the case that the DOJ found no fault in of him having some sort of a sexual affair with somebody that was a minor down in Florida in 2017. Of course, that did not stick to him, but he chose to stand down to actually, take the limelight off of him and put it back on Trump. But in order to get that appointment, he stepped down from Congress. So he's no longer in Congress, and we really needed him to be in Congress.
Yeah.
So,
but now that report that the Ethics Committee has cannot be.
It can't be used now that he's not in Congress
knowing
anymore.
Democrats, it'll get leaked. But
Right.
It's interesting that Matt was going to go after the very people that weaponized the Justice Department.
Correct.
That's the last time they're going to weaponize the Justice Department
against a political
Donald
candidate.
Trump will stop this once and for all. It was never intended to be used as a political weaponization.
Well, we've been experiencing all this lawfare against Trump, and it's insane what they've done to him. And it almost is like Americans were ready for retribution. And that's what we thought with Matt Gaetz.
Voted for that. They do not. They are tired of this stuff. This tired old beat up on presidential candidate. It was so obvious. It wasn't even a secret. It was wide open warfare. So, hey, Matt was going to bring the end, but guess what? They got one that's more after them, and they're shaking in their boots still.
Well, she's scandal-free.
Because of his second nomination.
Yeah, from
Florida.
Yeah, Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi.
Yes.
She's a woman, but don't count her out.
Yeah.
No. She's coming after him.
Straight. She's coming after him. Yeah, she was actually the first woman in Florida. Let's just, me and the history. I just love it. So she made history in Florida, being the first woman attorney general there. Mm-hmm. And she actually was one of President Trump's defense lawyers during his first impeachment trial.
Yeah,
so, they put him through the ringer, the impeachment trials, the different, felonies.
Yeah.
And everything. But here's what I love too is she was, her name is being brought up now, and there was somebody on CNN that said, listen, Matt Gaetz, okay, but y'all, and mind you, he is not on our team, okay, but he even said, y'all should be worried about Pam Bondi because she is competent.
She's competent.
So take it from the other side.
Did they think that women aren't competent?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. They literally are saying the quiet part out loud of how they really feel.
No, for sure. They ain't hiding it. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyways, how exciting to have, again, another beautiful blonde, but she's got brains. And so she's going to come in and, that's the appointment.
Yeah,
I know it.
So I'm excited because hopefully she'll go after what Matt Gaetz' intention was to go after these corrupt individuals that are wielding the power of the Department of Justice, and they're doing it against political candidates instead of going after the real criminals.
Right.
I mean, you could literally look no further than the Congress and the Senate to find a lot of the insider traders, a lot of the warmongers, a lot of these backroom deals that should not be made. They should be going after them and holding themselves accountable by the Department of Justice, and they're not doing it because they're paid off. So hopefully Pam Bondi will do that.
Two things.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen. Donald Trump's already said, number one, term limits are coming. Just plan on it. Term limits are coming. Second of all, aggrandizing your filling your pockets with lobbyists buying influence.
That's got to stop.
That is about to stop in the U.S. Congress.
Yeah.
Bravo, Donald.
Yeah.
By the way, have you seen my friend Donald behind me?
You should get you one.
You need a copy of this, folks. The artist is sitting right next to me. I've known him all his life.
Yeah, I did paint the inaugural painting. Hopefully, we've got people at Mar-a-Lago that are going to be looking at it to show Donald Trump. Hopefully, he'll get the original.
But you can get a copy right now.
Yeah. Just go to my website, richardtomasimaging.com/shop, and you can get an inaugural of the 47th president, the portrait of it. So excited.
I think he's going to be one of the best of all the 46 before him.
And can we talk about Melania Trump for a moment? Speaking about women, she is one of the most classiest first ladies next to Jackie Onassis in the White House. In fact, I think she trumps Jackie Onassis on class and fashion.
She does trump.
The funny thing is
Onassis, pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. The funny thing is that back when she was a Democrat, when her and Trump lived in New York City, she was on the cover of Vogue. But the moment she stepped into the White House with her husband, they made her the enemy. They all of the fashion people in the world, Tom Ford, Ann Winter, who's the head of Vogue, none of them wanted to touch her. She became literally off limits to them. She literally had to find outside designers to dress her. I think Oscar de la Renta actually stepped up to the plate, and a few other people that stepped up to the plate to dress her. And she had impeccable style. I mean, every single piece of wardrobe that she wore, and she kept it classy. Obviously, every first lady, they have their own agenda. I know Michelle Obama did it. I know Nancy Reagan, even Hillary Clinton. They have their own agenda as the first lady. They try to do some good surrounding the president's cabinet and stuff like that of their own thing. I think Michelle Obama's was make kids' school lunches healthy again, and that's great.
It's coming, folks. We're talking about Robert Kennedy today.
Right.
We're about to get those school lunches.
I think she'll come into the White House. She's not only going to make it classy, she's going to be decorating for the holidays. Next year in 2025, she'll decorate the White House, but she'll do so much more. And they loved to criticize her as a woman. And the funny thing is that they wouldn't criticize Kamala, but they'll criticize her. They'll say that she's ignorant, that she was a former supermodel that was X-rated, that had all these. And the funny thing is that she speaks 5 languages, super educated. She just is bringing class back to the White House. Another woman that we're going to spotlight. So in this painting behind my dad, I wanted to make sure that she, her patriotism came shining through, her beauty, her elegance. And so I'm excited about having beauty and grace back in the White House. God knows we would have had Douglas Emhoff as the first gentleman, which is disgusting in my opinion.
He is not for America.
He's not for as the first gentleman of the White House.
By the way.
Yeah.
She's an immigrant that came the right way.
Legal.
She came the right way. And you can talk all the mess you want to about Trump and his 3 wives, but I think she takes the cake. I think she takes the cake for class.
She's the classiest one we've ever seen.
Very
folks.
Classy. So
and her son Barron is as smart as his mother.
He is brilliant.
He's a giant.
Brilliant
He's actually
kid.
I found out from Donald Trump Jr. on one of the interviews that he is actually leading the social media for Donald Trump. So he actually got the interview for Joe Rogan set up for Donald Trump, which was the biggest, most viewed podcast of the century, I guess, if you would. Over 43 million people tuned in live for Joe Rogan's podcast, 3-hour interview with Donald Trump. And not only that, he's been bringing influencers around Trump. That's his son that's doing all that. His youngest son.
He's got his own X account too, folks. I watch it all the time.
I know. So we're excited about Pam Bondi. I think that she has no scandal. So they won't have to worry about Congress or Senate chasing after her. I think she'll get the appointment through Senate, and we're excited about that. Who else do we have?
Well, not only that, but let's just talk about the stature of Floridians, right?
Yeah.
So you've just got some good quality people in Florida. You got Ron DeSantis, who is running that state.
He's done great.
He's a beast.
He did great during COVID.
We have Pam Bondi, who's now going to take a national stage. Yep. I know Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio going to be Secretary of State.
He was a good senator.
I like Florida, folks. Born and raised in Florida.
Too.
I'm a native Floridian.
Me
Thank you very much. And I love
Florida.
the state of Florida. And there's some smart folks down there, too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Marco Rubio has been a House of Representatives. He started in the Florida House.
Right.
He wasn't there but just a little while. He started in politics in 2011. And this kid is a kid. He's 56. But he started early.
Yeah.
And he is of Cuban-American descent.
Yep.
And yet, talking about the Latino vote, he has always been behind Donald Trump with Latin American people.
Yes, he has.
And there's a lot of people that say that Donald is just trying to pad. Let me tell you something. He reached the Latino population better than the Democrats ever thought he would.
The percentages were
because he
high.
cares, because they have common sense. And it's amazing. They tried to pit the Latin American people to be in favor of the illegal immigrants and vote for Kamala.
No,
they're not.
It backfired.
They're not.
Because they themselves do not want these illegals coming into this country.
Yeah.
They came the right way.
They
came. Marco Rubio's parents came from Cuba back before Fidel Castro. They immigrated legally to this country. This kid was raised here. And so he represents them quite well. And being from Dade County. Hello. And that's not an easy
it's usually
place.
Very liberal.
Yeah. Usually liberal, and this year it went Republican.
Right.
Hello.
Well, you'll find out that anytime you take away the fraud machine. So that's what Ron DeSantis did back in 2020. He wanted to make sure that people's votes that were legal counted.
Yes.
And so anytime you have dead people voting, or anytime you're flipping numbers with, Dominion software, or anytime or stuffing ballots, and he was witnessing that down in Dade County, he made sure that he put officers on Dade County that monitored it, and he even locked up some of the corrupt people down there that were doing stuff quickly. And isn't it funny that when you take away the fraud machine, things flip red? Yep. That's why I always say you have no blue states, you have only blue cities. And because a vast majority of the country, 87% of the country is conservative. They're pro-American. Yeah. It just doesn't show up that way because of the fraud machine.
Well, I'm seeing a trend here. Donald Trump is appointing young people.
Yeah.
Okay, hello.
Yeah.
People say, well, he doesn't. Yes, he does. 56-year-old, yes. And Pam Bondi, even younger.
Right.
And his... all the people. Now, here's the point. In the past, our Secretary of States have been the organizational, what do you say, the machine.
Right.
They're diplomatically blah, 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 blah.
Correct.
Say, well, Marco can't do so. Oh, listen, there's two reasons why Donald picked Marco Rubio. He's hawkish on Iran and China.
Yep.
He's been beating the drum for a long time. Iran needs to be controlled, and China needs to come into order. Hey, Xi Jinping.
Yeah.
Biden's buddy. No. Donald Trump's already proven to us what he can do with the Chinese Communist Party. And I think he's already talking to him right now. And he knows if Marco comes into the Secretary of State, remember, he works for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He represents us in the State Department. Aren't we tired of Anthony Blinken? That Blinky character was over there selling us short with Israel, trying to tell Israel what they ought to do. He's the first one that started saying, ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire. Anthony Blinken, Democrat. It's time to go home. We're going to have Marco Rubio. He stands strong for Israel. He stands strong against Iran. All this trouble in Israel is Iran's fault. Hello. And when Donald was there before, folks, he bankrupted the place. He wouldn't let them have the oil. He wouldn't let them have that free pass. And he no sooner leaves the presidency in 2020. And what does Joe do? He goes and gives them money. He and Obama took boatloads of money to Iran for what? What? That's coming to an end.
Yes.
Mr. Ayatollah, whatever your name is, you're coming to an end. And Marco's going to stand for us against Iran and China. So, hey, do you see an agenda that Donald has, and where's going to be the main emphasis? And then, of course, we know we're not even talking today about Mike Huckabee, but he's going to be our ambassador to Israel, and he's already the best friend. Israel's applauding that one. He's a friend of Israel, and Donald Trump is a friend of Israel. Remember the Abraham Accords? Remember moving the embassy to Israel
Jerusalem.
that everybody said they want to do, and he did it.
Yep.
Donald does what he says, folks.
Yep. On time and under budget.
Well, talking about the Secretary of State, Blinken, right? There is a little bit of a scandal that's going on. The Committee of Oversight and Accountability, Chairman James Comer, did bring evidence out that the University of Pennsylvania took over $80 million to put together, what is it called? The Penn Biden Center. And in the Penn Biden Center, all the different people that they had working was Blinken, current Secretary of State. So they took donations from China. It was a Chinese company that donated millions of dollars to the University of Pennsylvania, and that was brought out in a hearing. And they were giving, this is how they were funneling money from China to Biden. And who sat with Biden at the Penn Biden Center was Secretary of State Blinken. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
How all of these people are attached to donations from China through the University of Pennsylvania.
Joe Biden's been in their pocket from day one. He and his son, they've taken money, millions of dollars from China.
Isn't that quid pro quo? Isn't that like a form of quid pro quo?
You would think so.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, maybe Pam Bondi will address that in the days
ahead.
Well,
it's illegal. I mean, you had Burisma, you had the energy company that paid Biden when he was vice president not to prosecute them, and then he gave that money. And then you have his son, Hunter Biden, who's a known crack addict. He's infamous for that, selling paintings on the West Coast for $900,000, and we know that that's money laundering.
Hey, folks, here's a painting that
I wish
Biden did not paint, but it's worth a lot more than any of his stuff.
Anytime you look at the money, you're following the trail of money, there's something tied to Biden. And I really hope that Pam Bondi, when she steps up to the plate, will actually, and rightfully so, prosecute the former president, prosecute some of these people. I mean, why isn't Hunter Biden in jail? Why isn't Blinken in jail? Because obviously they're taking backdoor deals with other countries that we're technically at war with.
Well, and the American people are over the two-tiered justice system.
Oh, it's bad.
So enough is enough. Miss Bondi, help us out.
Get them.
Yeah, go get them.
Sick them. Who else do we have on the cabinet?
Well, did you want to talk about Pete Hegseth?
Oh, let's go after Pete.
He's a stud. Fox and Friends news.
Fox and Friends Pete. But, before that, he is a Bronze Star Award. He's fought in Afghanistan. He fought in Iraq. He is for the veterans.
Yeah. Pro-America.
If you haven't figured it out, Donald Trump loves our military.
He does.
He built up our military last time, and on his agenda to rebuild, not a war machine, a peace machine.
Yeah.
Pete's favorite line is that he's for strength, peace through strength. Kind of reminds me of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Did he not say that?
Yeah, he did.
He not only said that, but he also said, you can trust people, but you better verify.
That's right.
Ronald was a smart man. He might have been an actor out of California, but he's smarter than you think. And is a great president. Pete has the same philosophy.
Yes, he does.
He's going to come to the Defense Department. He's not. It's time that the Defense Department stop being a war machine.
Yeah.
There's way too many people sitting up in the Pentagon that have contracts with all the machinery,
like
all
Lockheed
the planes,
Martin.
Lockheed, and all the tanks. And
as well as the senators, they all have investments.
The president's going to rebuild our military with Pete's help, and is going to make them strong. And he stands for veterans. And this is the crying shame. We are putting up immigrants in hotels.
Yes.
Not one veteran is in a hotel paid for by our and they should be. And when Pete's the defense, that's going to change, folks. Under Donald Trump, it's going to change. It's time to take care of our vets.
All veterans should be off the street.
For us.
Absolutely.
They paid a price.
Absolutely.
And their families.
Well, it's crazy because when you listen to, well, not even the news, if you just look at local journalists and you find out who was the gentleman that was over the money funding for FEMA. What was his name?
The FEMA guy?
Yeah.
Oh, gee,
I can't remember his name. We've talked about it on other episodes, but they've given $600 million to immigrant resettlement from the border, and that was FEMA. But then they had only $750 checks that went towards the North Carolinians, Western North Carolina, that was affected by all the flooding. And I myself have been up there several times. You've been up there with me. You've seen all of the devastation.
And it's coming out that they skipped over the Trump houses.
Yeah, well, that's in Florida. So when Hurricane Milton hit Florida, they're finding out that one of the heads, the chairman of FEMA, actually sent out a memo or notice for FEMA to skip over houses that had Trump signs or Trump flags or whatever. And I'm like, how do you do that? How do you make FEMA politicized so that you're not helping all people when it's tax dollars that supports FEMA and these are taxpayers that you're skipping over help? So it's time that we start not only funding people that are devastated and using the appropriation of funding, which I'm hoping that Vivek and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's is going to be sitting and working with Vivek. He's also Elon Musk to maybe cut down a lot of the extra spending that they're doing that's wrongful. They're doing a lot of wrong spending. So I think making sure that veterans are priority, the top tier. If you have fought for this country, Trump's going to make sure that you have housing, that you have mental health, because a lot of these vets have or suicidal vets because they have PTSD.
Yes,
and they're not being able to get the right treatment for their PTSD. That's going to stop. That's going to stop with this administration.
And Pete will do it. But also, you made reference to the fact of FEMA. That's under Homeland Security, and guess who's going to be the new Secretary of Homeland Security? Kristi Noem.
Yeah, the governor of North Dakota.
Hello.
Yeah, another woman.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes. Goodbye, Mr. Border guy down there that let everything go wrong as Homeland Security. What a joke you are.
See, you have to understand, whether you like Donald Trump or not, he's going to put Americans first. We're tired of Americans losing out at the mercy of the government, who's sending billions of dollars across to all of these different countries for their own projects. And truthfully, what they're doing is they're laundering money. Anytime you see billions of dollars flowing out, it's coming right back and lining their pockets. It's lining the cabinet members' pockets. It's lining the senators. That's why you see so many of these rhinos in Senate and in House voting for these overpriced bills, like stimulus bills that are going out of our country. It's flowing out, but it's coming right back in and lining their pockets. And Trump is going to cut that off. No more money to Ukraine, no more extra money to Iran and all Syria and all these other countries. We don't need to prop up the globe. Not when we have so many people in America.
That's right.
Now I'll get on my soapbox for a moment that can't feed their children, that can't afford groceries. No more money going out when our veterans are homeless. They're diseased on the streets. They're suicidal because they fought for our country and can't get medical help. I can barely afford medical insurance. You know, as a single entrepreneur, and I know you struggle with
Family
that too.
Family of 6, fortune.
It's
never
like,
use it either.
We are tired of struggling while you senators send money right out the door. And we're $2 trillion in debt. Enough's enough. We're tired of all the spending, and this is what Trump has promised, and I believe that he'll make good on his promise. The final promise that he made, that he connected with, was another former Democrat, and just 2 weeks ago, we didn't celebrate, but we honored the day that one of the greatest presidents, and I say this because if you study the history and the life of JFK, yes, he was a Democrat. Yes, he had extramarital affairs with Marilyn Monroe and all these. I'm not saying that he was a 100% moral Catholic. He wasn't. But he stood against the CIA. He stood against big government. He stood against centralized banking, which, if you understand the history of Federal Reserve and how it was founded by the Rothschild Bank, you would know why they enslaved America on Jekyll Island when they signed that after the Titanic dropped into the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and they enslaved the population to a Federal Reserve. It should have never been that way. And when JFK took president, he was an outsider. He was a Catholic.
Yes.
He stood against the mafia, the mob of New York, and he stood against the CIA. He stood on the Capitol steps and literally told the American public, we're tired of the centralized banks running everything. We're tired of the CIA overstepping and doing things that they shouldn't be doing. We're tired of the FBI, the dirty DOJ. He literally said all the things and the quiet part out loud. And 2 weeks later, he was riding in the back of a convertible in Dallas, Texas, and got his head blown off. And isn't it funny? Because I love the conspiracy theories. We love talking about that on Eyes Open.
CIA guy?
The head of the CIA was George Herbert Walker Bush.
Yep.
And he later became president. Yep. But you have to understand that we've been at war within ourselves. This has been a domestic war. Everybody wants to point the finger to Russia, to China, to Iran and Iraq. We're not necessarily at war with them. We're at war with ourselves. The war is the deep state war. And Donald Trump, the reason why they have fought, they've indicted him, or they've impeached him twice. Twice they've tried to take his life, and they couldn't do it. And we say that that's because of God.
Thank you, Jesus.
So twice they've tried to take his life. Why? Because he's going to hold the deep state accountable. Yeah. And hopefully this term, he's got a mandate to go after them. He's putting outsiders as cabinet members, not insiders. And 2 weeks ago, we honored the day that JFK died.
61 years ago.
61 years ago, just 2 weeks ago, November 22nd.
It's interesting that John Kennedy didn't trust the machine.
He didn't trust it, and he was vocal about it.
His brother, Bobby Kennedy.
Who they killed.
And they shot him too. And this is his son, Robert Kennedy Jr., that we're talking about, to go and change the health of America.
He was a Kennedy. There is a fact. If you actually look at the lineage of Trump, he is connected by familial status to the Kennedys. So he is like a distant cousin to the Kennedys. So he's related to them. And I think he's taking up JFK's war. And I think RFK is going to take up where JFK led.
Yes.
So, and that is taking on the system. And this is the biggest system in America is the FDA. They're in bed with the pharmaceutical companies. They're in bed with Pfizer. That's why if you look at people that sit at the FDA in positions of power, when they leave those positions of power, they don't retire. They go work for pharmaceutical companies. And so he's going to make sure that the FDA is doing their job regulating pharmaceuticals. He's going to make sure that they go after, and I think right now, red dye, yellow dye, these things they're being disbanded.
Going to clean the fluoride out of the water right away.
That's the first comment he said. Fluoride was studied back during World War II. When you look at the journals of Mein Kampf, you look at Hitler and what he did, he literally put sodium fluoride in water all throughout Europe to dumb down the population. Because what does fluoride do? It's one of the number one neurotoxins. It calcifies the pineal gland. And what is the pineal gland? It's your God-given gland that sits at the middle of your brain that allows you to perceive right from wrong. So what Hitler did was he wanted to make sure that fluoride dumbed down Europe so that they could not tell right from wrong, and they'd be afraid to question his military regime. While Americans took note of that during World War II, and they started putting sodium fluoride in all of our municipal water and our toothpaste, and dentists tried to say fluoride would keep your teeth from getting cavities. That's not true. It's not true. In fact, it's what dumbed down our children. And then when you add all the vaccines that RFK was talking about, he's going to clean it up. But that's his first agenda, is to not only get rid of half of the insiders at the FDA, he's going to fire them all, but he's also going after the sodium fluoride. And I'd love to play a quick clip. He did an actual summit with Senator Ron Johnson, and he talked a little bit about the health crisis in America with the chemicals in our food and in our water. Take a look at this clip.
When discussing improvements to U.S. healthcare policy, politicians from both parties often say that we have the best healthcare system in the world. That is a lie. The U.S. healthcare system is an existential threat to our country. If the American experiment fails, it will not be because we had the wrong marginal tax rate. It won't be because we don't have the perfectly optimized level of social safety net spending. It won't be because of the culture war and DEI issues and the media trumpets to orchestrate the division among all of us. Wow. No, if America fails, the chief reason will be because we let our country get sicker, more depressed, fatter, more infertile, at an increasing rate while crippling our national security, bankrupting our national budget with health care costs. Every major pillar of the U.S. healthcare system, as a statement of economic fact, makes money when Americans get sick.
Oh my God.
The most valuable asset in this country today is a sick child.
74% of Americans.
The pharma industry, the hospital industry, and medical school industry make more money when there are more interventions to perform on Americans. And by requiring insurance companies to take no more than 15% of premiums, Obamacare actually incentivized insurance companies to raise premiums to get 15% of a larger pie. This is why premiums have increased 100% since the passage of Obamacare, making healthcare the largest driver of inflation while American life expectancy plummets. We spend 4 times per capita on healthcare than the Italians, but Italians live 7.5 years longer than us on average. And incidentally, Americans had one of the highest life expectancies in the world when I was growing up. Today, we've fallen an average of 6 years behind our European neighbors. Are we lazier and more suicidal than Italians? Or is there a problem with our system? Are there problems with our incentives? Are there problems with our food?
Wow. So that's just a short clip, but I mean, he talked a lot and had fact after fact after fact. He wants to make America healthy again. That is his slogan. Not just make it great, but make it great with health. And that has to do with regulating the amount of chemicals that's put in our food, stopping the connection to pharmaceutical lobbyists on Capitol Hill that are influencing the Food and Drug Administration, and firing the people that are the culprits and going after pharmaceuticals. You know, you as a mother, you have had to protect and guard your four precious kids. And I think you've done it because you've kept them out of the doctor's office from getting shots after shots.
Well, I mean, this is really just an epidemic. And I mean, this deserves its whole episode, which maybe we'll get to. But the bottom line is this. We are incredibly toxic. Our toxic loads are off the chart.
Right.
We have poked and pill popped our way instead of getting to the root issue.
Absolutely.
Health and wellness. I love it. It woke me up upon the pregnancy of my first baby. I'm so grateful 14 years ago. And so if we would just start, and most of America is, which is why they were for his agenda. And when RFK joined President Trump, you saw a whole side flip, not a whole side, but y'all know what I mean, a population flip because they just want to be healthy again.
They do.
Take the junk out of our foods. Get these pill pushers and poppers agenda pushed back. Stop the money making. Get to the root of the problem. Make us healthy again. And so again, what you've seen is President Trump does not care about your background, meaning are you a Republican or Democrat? He doesn't care if you're white, black, Asian, or Hispanic. He doesn't care if you're male or female. What he cares about is the fact that are you pro-American? Do you want to stand with him and his agenda because the people have voted him in? And are you competent? And if you are, by golly, we are seeing appointment after appointment with competent people who are going to get the job done.
Absolutely.
And the Senate must approve him.
Yeah.
Come on now.
They've got to get RFK through. I know the system
Republicans
doesn't
are
want it.
hanging a little glitch out there. So, well, Robert Kennedy about abortion, blah, blah, blah. Who all he said was it's up to the woman and her doctor, etc. That sounds familiar, doesn't it, Democrats?
That's his position.
The bottom line is he's not in there as the abortion czar.
Right.
No.
He is in there for the health of our children.
Yeah, and Americans abroad. But that's
all of us.
That's all we have for this episode. There's so much to unpack. And by next week, there will be more cabinet appointments as we race towards the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. But we will see you on the next episode.
See you there.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.